and get up. And new grace and new mercy is upon us. Father, I pray on today, God.
Good morning.
Good morning. Was he breaking up?
No, good morning, Bishop.
Okay.
We're on.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Every day we rise. It's a great day to be alive. And welcome to the Seven Cities Farms of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talks morning show. My name is James Overton, one of the hosts, and I'm here with co-hosts Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. And this morning we have a special guest with us, and his name is James Edwards Jr. And
Is turn the volume up just a little bit?
Yes.
Who is that? Okay.
Turn the volume up a little bit. Talk closer into your mic.
For me?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll change that after a while. But let me introduce the guest, James Edwards Jr. Let me turn the volume up. James Edwards Jr. And he is another colonel, lieutenant colonel here. So don't get the colonels and the Jameses mixed up. We talked about that earlier. Have two Jameses and two colonels here. So we'll work it out so everybody will know who, when they're being spoken to. But we have him here today, and he's, well, let me start. He's a Woodrow Wilson grad, 1975. Okay. And he has served as a Virginia State Police. He has been on a deputy chief at Hampton University, worked with the Portsmouth Sheriff Department, and inmate programs coordinator with the Hampton Sheriff Department. And he's also attended the Virginia Union Theological Seminary. And what did you achieve there?
My master's in divinity.
Oh, okay.
I'm there. Yes.
All right, so it got a little bit of that Panther pride in you too.
Yes.
But anyway,
Greyhound, name it.
Yeah, how about that? But anyway, we're glad to have him here, and he's here with us today. And we want we'll let the Colonel do his disclaimer, and then Leah, please start off the conversation with Mr. Edwards here today.
Gladly.
Yeah, before we get started, I got to give the disclaimer so we can keep us out of Facebook jail. But for those of folks out there in Electron Land, the views stated on this program are of the guests and our crew here as hosts and nobody else. And so that'll keep us out of Facebook jail, even though Facebook is, or Meta is having some financial difficulties now, as I read in the papers. But that's another story to be talked about. So go ahead.
Well, good morning. You'll always be my Lieutenant Colonel, James Edwards. I had the pleasure of working with you at the Portsmouth City Jail, and I enjoyed my time with you immensely.
Wonderful.
However, James, you're here on another topic this morning. You're here to talk about the 50-year anniversary celebration, grand reunion for the Wilson graduates. But I must say at this time, it took a person who attended Norcom first to come together with the idea of bringing forth this grand reunion for the Wilson graduates. James, I want to say welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, and share with us a little bit about what you're planning to do for this grand reunion for Wilson High School.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Ms. Leah. Certainly appreciate being here this morning. And you all are a wonderful group of people that keep our history intact. You guys always ask the relevant questions. And I must admit, it is an honor and a privilege to be here this morning. I've got the task of representing my class of 1975 first, but now Woodrow Wilson graduates. And we took up the challenge to host a grand reunion for classes of 1972 through 2021. And so this morning, I wanted to come back and let you guys know that we're going to have a wonderful weekend starting in July of 2023, July 7th, 8th, and the 9th. The first night, which will be Friday, we will have a meet and greet And our meet and greet will be on the formerly known as the Spirit of Norfolk. It will be on the Spirit of Mount Vernon now. The name has changed.
Oh,
And
they changed it to the Spirit of Mount Vernon?
yes, yes, they replaced the boat with
Yeah.
another one. Yeah, so they did. And it was the Spirit, or it is the Spirit of Mount Vernon. And so the Saturday night, we'll have our formal banquet, of course. And Sunday is a day of worship and also a cookout at the city park. And that's going to be the weekend of the 7th, 8th, and 9th of July, 2023. We're still in the early stages. We're getting together the things that we need to get going and selecting all of the people and the places and the things. And it's going to be a grand event. It's going to be a grand event. And so for those that are planning to attend, I suggest you come early, because after talking on this talk show and the word getting out, there's going to probably be some limited space.
Where are you having your banquet, James?
The banquet currently, and it's liable to change based upon the turnout of the folk that we get. And we base it on a couple hundred folk. And so just to get an idea of where we were going to be financially. The first one is at the 757, that's off of George Washington Highway, venue 757. There's a couple of other venues that we considered. And as the crowd changes, we may shift somewhere in there. So, but it's a wonderful location to accommodate what we're looking at right now.
So how has it been in contacting the graduates, Wilson? How have you gone about that? And have you found that to be pretty successful?
I tell you, it's a difficult thing because, you know, everybody's kind of divided and doing their own thing. You know, you got the different classes from 1972 on through that had their own personal reunions and so forth and so on. And so our attempt was to get the class leaders from each one of those events and get them together and have sort of a fellowship and a meeting where we could extrapolate what we needed to do and how we could connect everybody. So it's an inclusive event that includes all of those folks. And we want to get that and have a good time with that, with everybody being there. Because they're part of Wilson, even though the school is not there anymore, the history kind of still goes on, you know. So.
And James, you said that you and many others started at IC Norcom High School. Share with us what took place and why you left IC Norcom and went on to Wilson High.
Wow, that's a topic right there by itself. We were there from 71 to 72, and as you know, segregation was what was going on, and so integration stepped up, and we moved from IC Norcom to Woodrow Wilson. Now, the strange thing about that is, even through the dogs, the fire hoses, and the protests, and those things, we made it through. We went to a place where they really didn't want to really receive us, and we really didn't want to go. And so, on both sides of the coin, there was some resistance, and so, but we were fortunate enough to make it through those times. And I remember the great times at IC Norcom. With important people like the vice president, the principal, vice principal, McGriff, and
yes, John McGriff.
Yeah, John McGriff and Edwards. Yes, principal. And so we have a lot of history running with us. As a matter of fact, with the 75 class, we really kind of like a hybrid. Because we came from Norcom and we had the emphasis of Norcom and that structure from Norcom. We went to Wilson and we didn't really want to go. But when we got there, we found that it wasn't a place that they wanted to really receive us. But years later, we were accepted. And so that was the benefit of going into a strange place and just being yourself. It really worked out for us. It really did.
And I know one other thing, James, I'm gonna let you get on. I know that you're also reaching out to Horace Savage. Now, why do you want to reach out to my Horace?
Well, your Horace is my Horace. As a matter of fact, he was with us at Harry Hunt.
Right.
We started at Harry Hunt. He was the vice principal there. And so when we went to Norcom, we went to Wilson actually after we transitioned from Norcom. Then he came over there as the vice principal as well. And I tell you, that was a really kind of different situation, because he was put in a position where he had to go and sort of be an enforcer in a sense. We didn't quite understand it then, but as I look back over the years, I realized he was in a difficult position, just like we were.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the difficulties that he had. As a matter of fact, when we had pep rallies coming from IC North, going to Woodrow Wilson, and the pep rallies that we had were almost riots, because as the Woodrow Wilson presidents went into their theme songs, we would come in to say, "We greyhounds, whoop, whoop, side the head, whoop, side the head, Ungawa, black power, Malcolm is the best." And so we had that tension and contention right in that same room. But years later, we learned to get over that and grow together and become strong, because all of that came as a result of change, and change is uncomfortable. And so we were uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable with us. We were uncomfortable with them. But I'll tell you this, years later, I've got a friend of mine that played football with me. His name is William Van. And we talked recently, and he said, "Man, when you guys came over, man, I didn't know what the world to believe. I was so afraid when you guys came into the pep rally and turned the place out." And I'm like, "We came there and you guys didn't really want us." But years later, 50 years later, we are good friends. And that goes to show you that progress comes through change, and sometimes change is uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, James, you mentioned, and Leah, you brought up Coach Savage, and you mentioned him. I think one of the things that made the change a little bit easier, because at that time they started pulling a lot of the teachers from IC Norcom and placing them in places like Wilson and Craddock. And Coach Savage told a story when he first got there. He was very disrespected by the white students, and he had to establish himself. So everybody caught his wrath, his discipline, trying to, even the black students, but he had to establish himself and not show favoritism, because he was there for that purpose. But anyway, and you pretty much talked about it, because I was going to bring up how historically important that era was, when all those changes were being made. So what you all doing now, will y'all also open the doors for students other than that went to Wilson to be involved? Because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of us lived in the same neighborhoods, but went to different schools because of, some people that were zoned to Wilson made arrangements to stay at Norcom. And then after a while, during that time, you could apply to Norcom. So if you didn't want to go to Wilson, you could apply and stay at Norcom. But we stayed in the same neighborhood. So it was still like a community, but we were all at different schools. So people will be able to, like myself, because I spent 1 year at Wilson, to come. I'll probably know most of those people from those colleges.
Absolutely. So it is an inclusive event that's going on. And certainly we want to fill the venue wherever we go and make it a wonderful thing. Getting back to Mr. Savage, I'll tell you, he was put in a real bad position, because he wanted to make certain that we were good examples of good students and so forth and so on, which he knew in his heart. But on the other side of the coin, he was being tested as well. I mean, when we came in after the first pep rally, all of a sudden they began with the megaphones, and they were the video recording as though they were expecting something to go off and something to happen bad, but it didn't. And Mr. Savage was a representation of how he instilled good vibes and discipline to those that were there. We thought at first that he was a difficult person, but as you grow through life and recognize how things happen and why they happen, then you learn to appreciate a person like that.
Let me ask this before the other colonel gets in here, because I think he might be able to piggyback on this, because he kind of went through the same thing too, transitioning into a white school where he was used to, being in an all-black situation. And we often talk about at Norcom how the teachers prepared us for life outside of the
Yes.
world of IC Norcom, prepared us for what kind of world, the crazy world that is still crazy. But those experiences that you probably learned by being at Norcom and then going to Wilson and seeing how people were, but some of those people grew into, the bigots that are out there now. And so how did that experience sort of prepare you as well for what you wouldn't be surprised, say, okay, this is how they are, so I better be ready.
Absolutely. You know, as a Black person, and as I've thought about it tonight, at one time we were colored, at one time we were Negroes, and then in the 70s we became Black.
But we were always the N-word.
Absolutely. And so what we transitioned from with the unity at Norcom, unity came and it looked like it was being broken up and dispelled and sent somewhere every which way. But we still had, because there's strength in numbers. And when it came to going to Wilson, they were like, we got ours, you got yours to get. And it was difficult because we had to scrape and scrounge to get it. We always had to become 3 times better to be considered equal, and that sort of thing. And so history was changing right before our eyes, whether we wanted to accept it or not. And those that did not want to accept it become the biggest that you see today. People that want to reject change, they're going to have a difficult time in life. Time is going to move on and life is going to move on.
With or without you.
With or without you. And one of the things I wanted to mention really quick, and I'll get out of the way, is this picture that I have behind me is a photograph that's by an artist by the name of Ernie Barnes. Back in the 70s, around that time, we saw the exploitation films, and when we saw shows like Good Time come on. You remember Good Time when J.J. Evans was doing the art. JJ was not the artist. The artist was Ernie Barnes.
Ernie Barnes, yes.
Ernie Barnes had that you would see in the closing remarks was a picture called, it was a club scene. And you would see it just before the letters would roll off the screen. And that picture sold this year for $15.3 million. He was an expressionist.
I think it was also on one of Marvin Gaye's albums.
And that's the one. It's called Sugar Shack.
I believe it was like The Dance or something like that.
Yeah, it's called the Sugar Shack.
The Sugar Shack, that's right.
Absolutely. It was on Mama Gay. Mama Gay had him commissioned to do that. And he put it on his album, I Want You, back in the 70s, 1976.
Exactly.
And this particular picture is a picture of 3 individuals looking down at the crack in the sidewalk, which is representative of the theme for our class. We were growing through limitations. And that's what we did. We grew through hard times. We became this beautiful flower that came through this sidewalk. And Ernie Barnes best described that in this photo. You have 3 teens here and they're looking at one particular dimension. And I'm sure they got 3 different perceptions of what's going on. And that's what happens, depending upon what perception you're looking at will determine how you feel about a situation. So I'm done with that.
Well, you know what? Yes, and it's real important what you're saying here, and it's saying that yes, if we don't know our history and where we came from, even though I graduated in '74 from Western Branch, we didn't integrate Western Branch until '69, '70, and so we had to go through the same things. And if you fast forward, here it is, all these decades later, America is going through the same thing. And we talk about back in the day about segregation and desegregation. Well, the right or the Confederates today really want to go back in theory to segregation. If you look at how the act of funding charter schools were basically segregated white schools. They'll let 1 or 2 of us in that can afford to go in, but they're all segregated. And so we can look at how they talk, and even from this Confederate governor that we were stuck with for the next 3-point-something years, who is a segregationist himself, wants to fund more charter schools and do everything, and is anti-woman, anti-African-American or Black or whatever we classify ourselves as. But now that I've gotten that chest off that, because tomorrow is an important day, because for those who stay home and don't vote, you seal your
Fate. Your fate.
your fate, and you
Yes.
deserve everything you're going to get, because they are coming after you,
Yes.
and they are the Confederate Party or the Republican Party that are riding a wave of crime, and their a solution to crime is to lock more of you up and throw the key away, and to cause fear of the others. And the others are who? People that don't look like them.
Absolutely.
And so we are repeating the same and falling into the same trap. And then the other issue, they talk about the economy. Any person that has any kind of education will know inflation is a problem worldwide. And the jobs are out there if you go out and apply. Everybody wants to get a job, that wants a job can get a job. And we have the lowest unemployment coming out of a pandemic in our nation's history. And so you can't talk about this is a bad economy per se. I know inflation is a problem because there's so much money out there. The supply lines are all jacked up because of the coming out of the pandemic, and because we had a prior administration that took all those trillions of dollars, stole half of it with these PPP loans, and the congressional and some of those Republican folks said they got hundreds of thousands of dollars of forgiven loans, but they won't eat. But they're against giving you a 10,000 break on your tuition for college. Now tell me where that is. Why would I support anybody like that? Now that I've gotten off this rant and telling the truth, but people go out and vote.
Yeah.
And then so getting back to your reunion, is there a website? Is there a cost? And how do you get the word out there?
You can go to the website, and that's
Which is
WWHS alumni of all classes. And that's a website, and you can get information there and find out all you need to know. And the Woodrow Wilson High School reunion alumni page 71 to 2021 is another page as well that you can get that information. So Facebook is the messenger by which we're using. And we
Just
have
not to interrupt you, James, but for
Sure,
some
go ahead.
reason, while the colonel was speaking, Facebook kicked off completely.
Okay.
Let me see if it would kick back on at this time. Looks like we're coming back live again. I don't know why it went off completely.
it's
So
back on. It's back on.
it's back on. Okay.
Back, you're back on.
Okay.
Go ahead, James.
Okay, and so we have a lead treasurer. If all of the classes are broken down by the year of graduation, and they have representatives that take the funds, but we have a lead treasurer as well. You can find all of those on the Facebook page that we have.
Give the Facebook page again, Colonel, please.
That's WWHS alumni of all classes, and that's going to be on Facebook. And then you have a second site, which is Woodrow Wilson High School alumni 71 to 2021. That's 2-page sites that we have. And we're expecting people from out of town and all over. So the funds have been broken down to 3 particular days. That's December, November the 15th, first deposit is $75. December 15th, second deposit 75, and then January the 15th is a $50 deposit for those that want to go on the spirit of not Norfolk anymore, but the spirit of
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. Thank you. Yeah.
And so in total, what is it? 200?
No, it's $150.
150.
I'm sorry,
No.
150. 200. Absolutely.
$200.
75.
Yeah,
75.
$200. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to give it away. Class President Coochie, Colette Parker would have had a fit.
Okay, so your reunion will take place July 7th, 8th, and 9th. $200.
Yes.
And you're calling for all classes from 72 through 2000, when the year the
2021.
school 2021.
Mhm.
And the event will be at the 757 venue so
Mhm.
far, unless the numbers change.
Absolutely.
And give those websites again for those individuals who, when we kicked off, they did not have a chance to hear you.
Okay, that's going to be WWHS alumni of all classes. That's on the Facebook page. And Woodrow Wilson High School alumni 71 through 2021. There are two different website pages on Facebook. So either one of those, you'll be able to get any information that you need regarding it.
You know what?
Colonel, we have to transition from the
Make the
radio.
transition. We want to thank all the listeners for WGPL 1350 AM on your radio dial for being with us this morning, and our special guest, James Edwards Jr. And we'll see you next Monday, and we're going to transition to Facebook Live only. Okay, Colonel.
Yes, perfect. You talked about advertising on Facebook. So are you planning on or thought about advertising with like the Suffolk, they got a Suffolk paper or one of the local papers, and also contacting the local radio stations under their community action time that they give out for free to give some interviews, so you can also get the word out from that. And then the third one would be, what kind of help are you getting with the city to do, and are they going to chime in with this?
Well, that's a perfect.
And not having to pay a bribe or anything to one of the.
I'm with you on that. Dan Scott is our media person. Fernando Scott is our media person, and certainly he has some ideas on how we're gonna get the word out. And absolutely, as a matter of fact, without putting anybody out, there is some conversation with the city about some places in the city. We certainly want to keep it home to contribute back to our own neighborhoods.
Yes,
but it is, and I'm looking forward to your 50th too, Slim. Like to be a part of that as well. Like to attend, if nothing else.
Of course, and we are going to celebrate it this next year, as opposed to this year, which is the actual 50th year.
Right.
But I want to say this is going to be 2023 is going to be an amazing year as far as history is concerned, and our high schools. Northam is celebrating 110 years, and I encourage all the people listening to put these dates down and try to attend all of them, because those times, like we've been talking about, were very significant, and it represented a significant change in the way we attended high school. And I think it's something that should be passed down to the present high school students for them to know what went on then. And, that history is just so important.
It is.
I want to transition into, what you're doing now with the high schools and what you've been, your occupations in the past, like state trooper and in law enforcement. So I'll put it that way in general. And now you're sort of faith-based, with what you do, combining that experience you had in law enforcement, because you saw a lot of things there. Saw a lot of young people go down that probably wouldn't have gone that route if they've had a different upbringing or different mentors or something like that. So now you're trying to include that, with your faith-based programs that you might be involved with. How did the law enforcement help you, or how did that stir you into deciding you want to go to the theology school and get your master's and sort of approach the problems that we have through your faith?
Well, number one, I'm a product of my environment. I grew up in the neighborhood called Adababa, and I was one of the first state troopers that came out of Adababa in Portsmouth. Now, I can't say I was the very first, but I can say that with the Virginia State Police, they kind of changed things over. And at one point, we were not included, and we became included. As a matter of fact, one of the largest classes that the state police had was a relative of a fellow by the name of Stanley Stiff, was one of the state troopers, and Al Moore,
Al
who
Moore.
was a
That's
very good
Michael Moore's
friend.
brother.
Yeah, that's
Michael
a very
Moore's
good friend
brother.
of mine, right?
Yes.
Al Moore was a state trooper from Portsmouth as well, and we became friends as we met over at Hampton Roads in Hampton area, and we're still friends to this day, of course. And so, as a result of that, the way I grew up, you know, I've even as a state trooper, get this, as a state trooper, I was a state trooper that was locked up in the city of Portsmouth. I went to make a complaint and ended up getting arrested. Of course, that was dismissed and that sort of thing. So I felt the blunt of each summer, you know, getting picked up by the police saying that something happened and you look like them. So I said to myself that to become a part of the police department would allow me to be fair to other people. And instead of picking on people, I could be an example to those in my community and so forth and so on. So I went into law enforcement. I started out, believe it or not, at the Portsmouth Sheriff's Office as a deputy. I left the Sheriff's Office with the Newport News shipyard. From Newport News, I went to the state police. And from the state police, I went to work in the community with my dad. Went back to corrections at Hampton Sheriff's Office with B.J. Roberts, for the first Black sheriff in Hampton. And from there, I went to Georgia, made my move, transition to Georgia, went there to do some ministry, came back from Georgia. A friend of mine called me, Moses Pollard. He opened up over at the Hampton Roads Regional Jail, called me back for my specialty to work there. So I went back to work at Hampton Roads Regional Jail. Left Hampton Roads Regional Jail, went to Hampton University, and rose from an officer to the deputy chief of police there. And so my concern was with the neighborhood and with students and folk of my kind that have gone through hard times. And so I've always had that compassion. My mother, of course, was a community worker. My father, the first Black jeweler in the city of Portsmouth.
Well-known jeweler, and I still have my mother's watch that my father bought at your father's jewelry store.
Wow, that goes to speak volumes to the quality.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm just a neighborhood boy that God allowed to go through what I went through in my life to be a better person and example. And I'm saved to serve. That's it for me. I'm saved to serve, and I save the community. I sit on the board of directors with Portsmouth Volunteer for the Homeless, also Portsmouth Christian Outreach Ministries, which is that old 7th Street Hotel turned into a homeless shelter. And the last one that I was on was the Friend Foundation, which were women and children. And when I left to go to Georgia, I left my home for them to occupy space. So I'm a community person, and I'm involved with community. And if you can't put in the skin in the game, don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah. And I say again and again on these shows, this is why we do what we do, especially when we have guests like yourself that can be an example to show that it's not all about your environment that you grew up in. And people, you know, and I spent a lot of time in Adababa because I had classmates and I would visit. And it wasn't like what people would say on the outside about it.
Right.
It was just another community, it just happened to be public housing. And but it shows our young people that it's not about your environment. It's about the wheel that's inside of you is where you would go. And plus having those mentors like yourself and things like that. And we try to show that here, especially with all the negative, you know, what gets the press in Portsmouth here. We need to show people that have come out of certain situations and still have a lot to offer. So we appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for allowing me to come on your program. You guys may not know how important you are, but you all are the the griots of the neighborhood. You got a deposit of a plethora of information and history that you'll continue to keep. And we have to share it and keep that. And like Colonel said, if you don't remember your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you. Like I said, it's people like you that give us the opportunity to share on this platform. So just wanted to say that, but we're still going.
Yeah, I thought I almost said, well, are we
It
coming
sounded like
to
the end, didn't
I
it?
said, is this the end of the show? But
No, I just wanted to get it out before,
that's good.
the
That's
time,
good.
yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll segue on that.
But
You know, we
James,
talk about.
before you segue, Colonel,
Mhm.
we are a number of people who did not hear what the show is truly about because we were kicked off. They can't go back and see it. Just briefly share with us why you're here, James. And then Colonel, I'll give it to you. Just for those who, when we were kicked
That's
off
cool.
and they won't be able to see it, okay?
Well, I pretty much came to, now this is James. I pretty much came to talk about the reunion, the Woodrow Wilson High School reunion. It's a grand reunion. It's inclusive of all the classes from the time that the IC Norcom Greyhounds got there in their freshman year in Norcom to being sent over to Woodrow Wilson and those classes up until the school was removed. And so we wanted to get all of those folk together to have a wonderful weekend. And we're going to do it in July the 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2023. And hopefully we can come back in fellowship and enjoy the moments that we've shared together as a class of schoolmates.
A president's celebration with a little bit of Greyhound flavor.
Yeah, that's that hybrid. That's what they call it, that hybrid.
And James, and it's $200 to attend. The first payment is due when? Second and third.
The first payment is done November the 15th. The second payment, and that's $75. The second payment of $75 is due December 15th. And the last payment of $50 is due in January 15th. And so for some of those areas, if you just want to attend, you're coming from out of town, you want to attend one place or the other, those prices are broken down for you. You can go to that website, WWHS alumni, all classes, and or Woodrow Wilson High School alumni, 71 through 2021.
Okay, I asked you that because I know when we get ready to put this on YouTube, we may not get the beginning. So I wanted to make sure that this was included when we, false advertising. What is this? Your posts against our community standards on spam. No one else can see your posts. We have these standards to prevent things like false advertising. If your content goes against our community standards again, your account will be restricted.
Is that a Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Facebook. That's something at the end you're gonna have to challenge because they get me a lot. And it's just strange how they have the people, and I'll say it to you, Facebook people that's watching, that watch certain things and certain things, I have to constantly change my password because of hackers. But they constantly own us for what we're trying to do. But anyway, I had to get that point out. I wish they would concentrate on trying to stop hackers from getting into our accounts. But anyway, Leah, I think that's something, I don't know if people are still watching, but anyway, we'll continue. Because what you download will be from the Zoom, I think, to our YouTube.
Yes.
So
But they kicked me off for some reason.
yeah, it won't. So what you download be from Zoom, it won't be affected. But anyway, we can continue. Colonel, go ahead. You were
You know, it's important that we see what's happening here, especially with Facebook or Meta. You know, they are having a lot of difficulties out here regulating things. The same thing with Twitter, and when they take it over there, what they call hate speech or whatever, it may be an algorithm that a word comes up and all of a sudden it hits, you know, the computer says, oh, no more, you can't go that way. You know, they shut you down. But real hate speech is allowed on Twitter, and depending on where it comes from. But saying that, if for those out there in electrons that can still listen to us before they try to shut us down, if you want to hear more messages like that, we also need your help. We also take donations or honorariums to Portsmouth. You can send it into Portsmouth Coffee Talk, P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707. And we have a Cash App and a Zelle that Slim's going to tell you about.
Yeah, our Cash App is $ PCT 1220, $PCT 1220, and the Zelle is under Portsmouth Coffee Talk at yahoo.com. Portsmouth Coffee Talk at yahoo.com. We appreciate anything you'd like to contribute to us and our platform, what we do, and everything we receive stays with this platform for us to continue and improve on what we do here. And I'd like to thank all our previous donors that have given to us up to this point.
So saying that, back on that vein though, as I look at, as Leah talks about how Facebook has just shut us down, it goes back to what do they not want us to say?
Well,
And-
it looks like they're trying to allow us back on again. I just don't know what's taking place or what we could have said or what's considered spam or
I don't know.
it's interesting. But anyway,
Actually, we've been inside the lines. Actually, myself, I believe I've been, you know, I haven't been out there myself that while yet. But let me say this, is that this event that you're doing for the other graduates, this is a shared event so that folks of all races and economic status, it doesn't make any difference where you came from or where you ended up. It's a time to get together so you can fellowship.
Absolutely.
Because one, when you talk about 50 years, if you don't come out to it, there are folks that won't be here next year because they'll be at City Park or they'll be somewhere in the funeral home somewhere. So this is an opportunity to get out there and bring your kids and grandkids and all that to fellowship and say, hey, this is my best bud from high school for back in the day. And this was this and that, and, you know, and also to give them examples of, you know, look at Johnny Sue, and here is such and such, and see what they turn their life into. And so it's just a good time to get out there and see everybody, because you never know what the next day will bring. Am I correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the whole theme pretty much is unity. It's about getting together and going across, coming through the obstacles that have blocked you and kept you away. And so when anybody has a reason to come against unity, then I find that the flaw is not in what they're looking at. The flaw is in their lens.
Mm-hmm. Because at the start, when you talk about 50 years, those were some turbulent times.
They were
In America's history. And we can look back at that and to say, hey, this was true.
Yes.
We may not be able to read it in the history books, especially now, you know, as we try to erase our past history, but we want to get out there and to speak truth to and to teach our young folks, yes, history will repeat itself. Well, actually, it is repeating itself. And but we can be better. As Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. Back in the day, folks went low, we survived. And we went high. And now look at us now, as they say in one of the songs, look at me now. So yeah, so I'll go back there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so important too for families with us now, grandchildren and great grandchildren, to be
Yes.
involved, because I can remember being so amazed when my father would introduce me to somebody. They'd known each other for 50 years. I couldn't even see past, when you're about 10, 8, 9, 10, you can't imagine somebody knowing somebody for 50 years. And I used to be so amazed and just to sit there and hear them talk about, because none of us could imagine our parents as youngsters. We knew them only as grown folks, and to hear them talk about their high school days or elementary school days was always amazing to me. And it also gave us a sense of who our parents were and how they were shaped and why they were like they are. So I think it's going to be important to involve the families, especially with the church day and the picnic. That's going to be the part where you really have the families out there, and to sit down like in Africa they used to do, just sit down and tell those stories and pass those stories down.
And James, with this being your first grand reunion, you're going to find that as it grows, it gets better. We are going into our 9th grand reunion at Ice Northam High School.
Wow.
And it's just a great time. And it was experienced just this past weekend for homecoming.
Right.
All the various classes coming together, celebrating together, rejoicing with each other and just talking about old times,
Wow.
and you have to preserve that history. And that's what we work so hard to do at Norcom, is to keep that history alive. And the stories that you all have to share as a result of coming out of a segregated situation into a place where you truly weren't wanted. But you need to share those stories, and you need to record those stories, and you need to keep those stories alive for those who come behind you. As I think Colonel just said, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so I just hope that you all will expand where you all will get to do your 9th and your 10th year grand reunions, get everybody together.
Also, James, it's important to remember those classmates that are no longer here.
Exactly.
Some of those classmates might have played a big part in our lives. Somebody that you used to hang with that stopped you from going to the corner store that night because he had a bad feeling, and then something happened there. Those, just remembering those people that influence your life, but they weren't, the biggest people. We always celebrate the people that have all the accolades, but it was people in our lives growing up that meant something to us, and it gives us the opportunity to remember those people.
Absolutely. And on that point, one of the persons that kind of stick out in my mind was a fellow by the name of Alf J. Mapp Jr. the third.
Yeah.
Alf Mapp, he left us this year. He's deceased.
Yeah.
And but the memory of the nicest guy that you ever want to meet, just as intelligent and friendly and nice as you could ever want to see a person. We had an opportunity to share life with him. And so just like many others, we do. And on that same note, with a person that is alive, a person that was in our class, a guy by the name of Guy Wong. Guy Wong, the name doesn't sound familiar, but his parents had a restaurant that everybody went to. It was called Sing Wong.
Sing Wong. Yaka Sing Wong. Yes.
And so Guy Wong was there in Woodrow Wilson with us, going through everything that he went through. And we shared those things. So we have a lot of history and a lot of local people, even remembering going back to Norcom when Dolores Overton, now Short, ran for city council, had over 4,000 votes.
That's right.
18 years old.
18 years old.
18
years old.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of history. We came from a nucleus of one place and we spread out. And so we should spread where we came from and keep those memories alive. And it's shows like yours that brings up those thoughts and keep us going about our business with the good side of what happened in our lives. And even though there were some difficult moments, we got through it and we're better for it.
Definitely better for it. I know I'm better for the experience I had, that 1 year experience I had at Wilson.
Yes.
I'm better for it. If I hadn't got a opportunity to see that side,
Mhm.
So I think
Right.
it really helped me. Even
Right.
when I got to Norcom, I had a more sense of pride going to
Mhm.
Norcom, coming from having that first year of experience at Wilson. It's taught me,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is crazy out here. I better be ready for these folks.
So you better
Oh,
go back home where you
absolutely.
belong, right?
Yeah.
Right. It made you better. And the good thing is when you grow, the beauty of growing is not to become bitter, but to become better.
Come
And
better.
so, you probably heard that a lot before, but I think the success is in knowing that your experience didn't make you bitter. It only made us better.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know what? You talk also about history, and then you brought back the restaurant Sing Wong,
Yes, yes.
and yeah, I tell you, I just shake my head because I remember going to it over the last 50 years,
Yes,
and it was an institution. Even at
yes,
the end,
yes.
people talk about, yeah, they were only there to make money, but they were great people.
They
And
were.
Mhm.
yeah, and I had conversations with Mrs. Wong before they, her and her husband was the last two working in it, and
Right.
I remember saying the only reason she's closing up because he was having health problems at the
Right.
time, and I see her every so often, and we exchange words and we talk about our kids, and she'll talk about her daughters and went to ODU, and I'll talk
Yeah.
about mine and stuff like that. But they were great people. But that
Absolutely.
history, though, that shared history that spans over 50 years of going there, and they had the best yacht in the world, and
Woo,
right.
woo.
Lord, I'm starting to sweat now. Yeah, you can't find it anywhere
No.
like that anymore. But
And
it'd be interesting. I wish the city had like a historian that could come out and start recording a lot of this shared history that you'll have. Like you say, when you have these events and you got somebody showing up, somebody record. You need to record that and put it on. To save it for time.
well, I'll be honest, you guys have already started that sort of work, and that's a wonderful thing to keep in the resources that our children can look back at.
Mhm.
No question, because the tragedy in all that we went through wasn't the trauma that we experienced. The tragedy was the generation that came after us didn't
Mhm.
know what we had to pay. They didn't know
Mhm.
the cost of what it
Yes.
cost us to be who we were. And so
Mhm.
we have to keep mindful of what we went through. And just like our forefathers. Now, there's some people today that don't remember what it's like to dial a rotary phone, because the cell phone era.
Uh-huh.
But we came through when Texas Instrument had the very first calculator.
That's right.
We
That's
thought
right.
that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we got to keep those things in line and keep being reminded of where we came from.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It
You
gives
know,
us strength.
I have to share this quick story. And we talked about Coach Savage earlier,
Mhm.
and maybe about 2 weeks ago, my wife and I we went out to eat, and I'm always at the point where strike up a conversation with people. You never know where it's going to go. So many people might sit right beside each other and not say a word. And
Right.
most times when I do that, we end up finding we have something in common. So it was this
Yes.
couple sitting in the booth, and I just struck up a conversation. And the guy, I said, "Oh, well, what school did you go to?" He said, "I went to Woodrow Wilson," and he was there during the same time I was at Norcom. And in the conversation, he was saying, "Man, one of the toughest people I ran into," and he was a white guy. One of the toughest people I ran into was Horace Savage.
Mm.
And he admitted, he said, "I tried him. When he came there, I tried him, but he put me in my place." And we showed him a picture of him. He couldn't believe he was still alive.
Mhm.
He said, "Man." And I never would have had that experience if I hadn't just struck up a conversation
Exactly.
and it got to that. And the first person he brought up that,
It's
It's
hard.
Horace.
because it
Horace.
probably was his first experience dealing with Black folks.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And that experience stayed in his mind of this man who was
Disciplinarian.
from, thank
Yes.
you. I couldn't get that word out,
I
but
know, I
that
know.
was, that was the first person he remembered.
How about
And
that?
I didn't even bring it up. He brought it up. And I said, wow, this is amazing. So my point is, strike up a conversation with
Mhm.
people. You never know. And this is how we keep the world going around. If we talk to
Mhm.
each other, and you never know, people you disagree with, you never know that you might understand them better. You still might disagree with them, but you might understand their position better if you
Absolutely.
just have a conversation with them.
Mhm.
And James, Colonel James, I just want to let you know that Horace in July, I think was 90 or 91, he became,
No,
and
it's
he's
97.
97.
97. Oh my goodness, I took him. Wait a minute. Yeah, 97. Oh, but he still drives to alumni. He comes to IC Norcom alumni meetings. He drives and comes to our alumni meetings.
What?
97, right, Colonel?
I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's,
so.
you
Oh
sure it's
man.
97? I thought,
97 or 96. It was up there. It's past
okay,
91.
okay. Well,
He's
he still drives and comes to our alumni meetings. And he was also in our homecoming parade last weekend.
I would love to have a platform to award him for all of the years of service that he gave to our community,
Mhm.
and to let him know, give you, they talk about giving you flowers while you're alive,
Mhm.
and I think he's very deserving of that, very much so, very much so.
Very, very humble, but he appreciates being appreciated.
Yes.
Mhm.
I can't imagine what he had to go through just to be who he was.
Mhm.
He had
Oh,
to
he can
prove
he
he
can
was
tell you that story about
valuable.
his time at,
Oh
at
yeah,
Wilson, that's for sure.
oh yeah,
He
yeah.
had some trying times there.
Oh,
So
we gave him a handful, let me tell you, we
mhm,
did.
And
But not knowing his value to us. And
exactly.
he
and
had to,
so
he kind of caught it too when he was
yes, he did.
secretary of the school board.
Exactly.
And he was up there during the time when all the controversy about Norcom was going on. I
Mm,
think he and Holly were up there at the time, and they had to
wow.
walk that thin line,
Yes.
of
Yes.
doing their job,
Uh-huh.
and having a love for Norcom at the same time. And people kind of got on them for that because, they had to, they couldn't just speak out. People
Mhm.
expected them to be in their position and speak
Right.
out for
Right.
Norcom, and they couldn't do that in the
No.
position they were holding. They had to, do what they had to do. But we appreciate it now.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But James, the last thing,
Yes, sir.
I think you kind of went into why you went into you're a minister now, or
Oh,
Reverend?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm one of the associate ministers at Grove Church.
Yes.
And really and truly, I just love outreach, reaching out to people on the outside. I mean, in church, we have the relationship of upreach, which is worship, inreach, which is fellowship, and outreach is the area that I think most churches probably have to bring the standards up somewhat,
Hmm.
because COVID kind of proved those things for us. But as churches should, they should always meet the needs of the people.
Indeed.
Mhm.
So
Indeed.
that's it.
It was always a pleasure to, at the end of service, to walk by and be able to look somebody right in the eye.
Absolutely.
Same
Absolutely.
height.
Yes, 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 it is.
Well,
Okay.
all I can say is I'm thankful for YouTube, James, because I don't know how this is going to turn out on Facebook. But we will have this on YouTube once we conclude with this program. So you can invite all of your friends to go on Portsmouth Coffee Talks YouTube page.
Mhm.
Tell them to subscribe and like and share the YouTube page. If they share it, then all of your classmates can actually see what you discussed on today.
Okay.
Because I don't know where we are with Facebook at this time.
Well,
But
once I get it on YouTube, I share it back to Facebook.
yeah,
And
so we're thankful
they
for
can't do
Zoom,
anything about it.
because through Zoom, we can still put it on YouTube. And I don't know what we possibly could have done or said to cause them to interact the way that they did, or to shut us down. So
Wow.
we shall see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We
You
shall see.
know, even with challenges, the best comes out of challenges. So
Exactly.
About it.
Exactly.
beauty comes out of
Exactly.
challenges. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
Sometimes we got to be uncomfortable. But okay,
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
indeed. So as we wind down now, come to the end, first, if any co-hosts have any last comments to like to make, but we want to leave the last words to our special guest, James Edwards. So, Leo,
Yeah. James, Lieutenant Colonel,
Yes, ma'am.
I am so thankful that you reached out to us to come on today to share your information on the Woodrow Wilson's Grand Reunion coming up in July 7th, 8th, and 9th, which will take place on the Spirit of Mount Vernon, as well
Absolutely.
as the 757 venue.
Right.
So, but I feel so blessed that I've had an opportunity to work with you at the Portsmouth Sheriff's Office, to work with you in some community projects. And I know that you're a man who not only talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And that's what's important. You know, it's easy for us to talk about things, but when we're not out there actually involved in the action to make it come about, it means absolutely nothing. So I want to say, thank you for coming on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. If at another time later, as you all are going through the process, you need to come back to share more information as to where you are more than welcome to come back. And once again, I want to say thank you for being my friend, and thank you for coming on Portsmouth Coffee Talk.
My pleasure.
Colonel?
Yes, and James, thanks for coming on this morning. And we've covered a whole plethora and the whole span of different subjects and stuff like that. But we're wishing you well in this next project to get this reunion going on, because for those who don't come out, you may not have another chance to see some of your old buddies and sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles that won't be here this time. So, spend the time, spend the go ahead and register, pay the $200 or whatever, because it's a small piece to for your own history. And then and the last piece is saying, this might have got us kicked off of Facebook. People, go out and vote, man, because vote as if your life depends on it, because it does.
It does.
These people that you will put in have effect all the way, will affect you, your kids, your grandkids, and your great-great-grandkids. And you may not have a free and fair election in another couple years with some of the stuff that's some of these people are trying to run and get through. So you have a chance to change and to protect democracy. That's it. I'm trying to see if Facebook kicks us off, because I
Please
said
don't,
vote.
because I need my Facebook page, please.
Yeah, I probably use the word vote.
I use it for too many venues. I use it for Norcom and for church and what have you. So please don't get us kicked off.
Yeah, I was toning it down.
Please don't.
hey, James, I like to say, even before I knew you, I remember being so proud of seeing you in that state trooper uniform, because I didn't see many like you in that uniform. And over the years, I think my wife knew the family, knew you, and she would tell me who you were. And then later on, seeing you in the church that I grew up in, doing what you do there and continue to do. I appreciate that. And what you're doing now, as far as with your class, it's very important. Something as you know, Malcolm, we are strong on that history and sharing that history and sharing our experiences. And what you're doing now at Wilson, with Wilson, the experience you had there, and making sure people come back and continue to share their experiences there, because you got to see both sides, and it wasn't always fair, but it was, like you said, it was something that made you better. And I appreciate you coming on here, and maybe we'll have you back again as we get closer to the event.
I certainly would appreciate that. Thank you so much, all of you, for what you do and how strong a voice you have in this community. And if you didn't pose a serious threat to folk, I don't think you would have any issues whatsoever. Obviously, there's some power in what you do, so keep doing what you're doing. and change will take place. And so change sometimes comes slowly, and
Yes.
change sometimes make people uncomfortable,
Mhm.
but that's the way it is. And I thank you so much for an opportunity to come before you tonight to talk about this grand reunion. But I want to say that it wasn't just me. There's a host of people that's involved. My class president, Carletta Kuchipaka. There's the treasurer, Joyce Jones. There's so many other people involved. Dad Scott is the media person. Kathy Ballard, Sugar is a part of what's going on in organizations, and so many other people. And for those of you that are interested in coming, you have an open invitation to this event. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Miss Steph, because you are like everywhere. You got your hands in some areas. Anything that's positive, I see you there. And James, even when you were walking around with a little, you might have had a little camera or your phone or whatever. Look where you are now. But it all started with a small beginning.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so everything starts small, but then when God has his hands in it, you know, he magnifies everything. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to know folk like yourselves.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I also truly hope some of the white students will
Absolutely.
be involved as well, because we'd like to hear their experiences, you know, the ones that we'll talk about it, their
Yeah.
honest experiences, how it was for them,
Absolutely.
you know, having to do, we always talk about the first time we went to an integrated school, but
Mhm.
it was an experience for them too, to have to
Absolutely.
deal with
It
us.
was. It
And
was.
they probably, some of their attitudes probably changed because they
Mhm.
sat beside one of us in class and got to know us.
Mhm.
So hopefully some of them will be involved with this event as well. So we can come there and share their stories as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice
Our community.
And our future.
and our future. What's that?
Uh-oh,
Okay.
steal a
Steal it.
stuff.
Oh,
Steal a
Okay,
stuff.
okay, that was cheap.
no, that was okay. You know what we would hold up. You know the cup we would hold up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At least we didn't lose yesterday because we didn't play.
That's right. You all be blessed, and thank you again for everything.
All righty.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you
We
so
appreciate
very
it.
much. Thank
Take
you.
care. All
Take
right.
care.
Okay.
Okay.
Leah, I had
Wait.
Yeah.